Hare Krishna. It's January 11th, 2022, and we're studying from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 1, entitled Questions by Vidura. We're on text 10. Okay. All right. So Srimad Bhagavatam, this is like the natural follow-up book to Bhagavad Gita. Srila Prabhupada gave it to us in 30 volumes. Text 10, Yada, Upahuta, Bhavanam, Pravishta, Mantraya, Prishta, Kila, Purvajena, Ata, Aha, Tat, Mantra, Drisham, Varian, Yat, Mantrina, Vaidurikam, Vadanti. Yeah. Yadopahuto bhavanam pravishto Mantraya prishta kila purvajena Atahatan mantra drisham variyan Yan mantrino vaidurikam vadanti Yadopahuto bhavanam pravishto Mantraya prishta kila purvajena Atahatan mantra drisham variyan Yan mantrino vaidurikam vadanti Yadopahuto bhavanam pravishto Mantraya prishta kila purvajena Atahatan mantra drisham variyan Yan mantrino vaidurikam vadanti Yadopahuto bhavanam pravishto Mantraya prishta kila purvajena Atahatan mantra drisham variyan Yan mantrino vaidurikam vadanti
Yadopahuto bhavanam pravishto Mantraya prishta kila purvajena Atahatan mantra drisham variyan
Atahatan mantra drisham variyan
Yan mantrino vaidurikam vadanti
Yan mantrino vaidurikam vadanti. Would anyone online like to chant the verse? This is Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 1, Text 10. Okay, we'll go to the word-for-word meanings. Yada. When. Upahuta. Was called by. Bhavanam. The palace. Pravishta. Entered. Mantraya. For consultation. Prishta. Asked by. Kila. Of course. Purvajena. By the elder brother. Ata. Thus. Aha,
Aha.
said,
Said.
tat,
That.
that,
That.
mantra,
Mantra.
advice,
Advice.
drisham,
Drisham.
just suitable,
Just suitable.
varian,
Varian.
excellent,
Excellent.
yat,
Yat.
that which,
That which.
mantrina,
Mantrina.
the ministers of state,
Ministers of state.
or expert politicians,
Or expert politicians.
Vaidurikam,
Vaidurikam.
instructions by Vidura,
Instructions by Vidura.
Vedanti,
Vedanti.
do they say.
Do they say.
Translation. When Vidura was invited by his elder brother Dhritarashtra for consultation, he entered the house and gave instructions which were exactly to the point. His advice is well known, and instructions by Vidura are approved by expert ministers of state. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Political suggestions by Vidura are known as expert, just as in modern times, Pandita Chanakya is considered the authority in good counsel in both political and moral instructions. Yes. Okay, so I'll recite some mantras to continue to invoke auspiciousness in our gathering, to continue to invoke the presence and blessings of pure realized personalities. Om Jnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshuranmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayamupa Kadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Uta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sugrajatam Saganaragnatanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitan Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitam Scha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Panchakalpatayubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanan Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Namo Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Prestaya Bhutale, Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Sarasvati Deve Glavani Pracharine, Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarini. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaivanamotamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraya. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should first offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead Narayan, to Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Sarasvati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta Prayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevya Bhagavad Yutamashloke Bhakti Bhavati Naistiki Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 1, Text 10. Yado Pahuto Bhavanam Pravishto Mantraya Prishta Kila Purvajena Atahatan Mantra Drisham Variyan Yan Mantri Novai Durikam Vadanti. When Vidura was invited by his elder brother Dhritarashtra for consultation, he entered the house and gave instructions which were exactly to the point. His advice is well known, and instructions by Vidura are approved by expert ministers of state. Okay. So this is the third of 12 cantos of Srimad Bhagavatam. Bhagavatam has like 18,000 verses. Bhagavad Gita has 7,000 verses. Each verse is a mantra, for transformation of heart. So this chapter is entitled Questions by Vidura. This is the beginning of the third canto. Third canto has 33 chapters. The first chapter of the first canto, the first chapter of Bhagavatam, is entitled Questions by the Sages. So the whole Bhagavatam, it's questions and responses by different personalities. Right at the beginning of the second chapter of the first canto, the one who received the question, Sutta Goswami, he starts with a verse, Munaya Saruprishto Ham Bhavadbir Lokamangalam Yat Krita Krishna Samprashno Yayatma Suprasidati. And so he's saying, oh sages, your questions are glorious. Your questions are very wonderful. Because they relate to self-realization, they relate to devotional service, they relate to Lord Krishna. Therefore, questions of this sort are relevant for the true welfare of all living beings. And he says, only questions of this sort can completely satisfy the self. Yenatma suprasidati. Right? So we're all asking questions all the time. We've discussed this in recent classes, right? Whether it's the trees or the squirrels or human beings. Where's food? Where's a suitable mate? Where's shelter? Where's protection? All right. So we don't want to ignore those questions. We want to be, practical and conscious, about, we're spiritual beings having human experience of the human experience, and this is an important vehicle. We want to take care of the vehicle of the body. And Sutta Goswami, he's so much appreciating, but these are questions that relate to liberation. These are questions that relate to the eternal satisfaction of the spirit soul, of the difference between spirit and matter, and spirit and supreme spirit, and what is karma, what's the nature of activity, what's the nature of time, what's the purpose of human life. So these questions can completely satisfy the self. Towards the end of the first canto, Maharaj Parikshit asks questions, and then right in the first verse of the second canto, Shukadeva Goswami responds, the same word here, Varyan, excellent, Varyane Shate Pragya, Krito Loke, I forgot the verse, but the same word is used here, Varyan, which means excellent. So Shukadeva Goswami at the beginning of the second canto, these questions are excellent, because these are sagacious questions. These questions relate to, as you were talking about the other day, Melanie, about what should be we remembering at the time of death. And time of death, time of death, that's far away. I got decades to live, maybe. Maharaj Parikshit, he knew he had 7 days to remain in this body. Of course, the spirit soul never dies. Jayate Mriyate Bhakadachin, for the soul, there's neither birth nor death. Hanyate Hanumane Sharire. The soul's never killed. It can't be killed, can't be slain. And I know Jodhya Shashvatobi Amparano. And but as far as the soul leaving the body, that death of the body. So Maharaj Parikshit knew he has 7 days, but I got 70 years. I got another 30 years, maybe we don't have another 7 minutes. We don't know. Okay, so that's wisdom is like padam yadvi padam notation. Every step in the material world is full of danger. So it's not meant to be depressing, full of anxiety, but let me avyarta kalatvam, a quality of a devotional soul, is the soul does not want to waste a moment outside of self-realization, outside of Krishna consciousness, want to use every moment in a meaningful way. And that's a quality of a symptom of progressing on this path of bhakti, is we're more and more eager to use every moment for truly meaningful eternal purposes. And then to the extent that we're doing that, then we're connected with our natural joy, whether we were talking yesterday with Bhakti Nico. You asked about Juba Maharaj, who on the way to Vaikuntha, Vaikuntha means the realm without anxiety. It's a term for the spiritual world, Vaikuntha. Juba Maharaj, he used death personified came before him, and he stepped on the head of death to get on the transcendental airship to Vaikuntha. Amazing pastimes in Srimad Bhagavatam, right? So then, whenever the death of whenever we leave the body, that we get to practice doing what the soul in enlightenment does all the time, and then death. Then there's no fear there. Abide. Then we're truly fearless. Then there's no fear there. Because my happiness is based on devotional service. Savai punsam paro dharmo yato bhaktirid hokshaje ahetukya prityataya yatno suprasidati. That the spirit soul is completely satisfied when we're engaged in unmotivated, uninterrupted devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And when our only desire is self-realization and to serve God with pure devotion, nothing material can get in the way of that. Okay, so that's security, that's happiness. Otherwise, to the extent that we're under the illusion that my happiness, my peace, my security, my fulfillment, my joy is dependent on anything that will be crushed by time, either in a moment, a day, or 1 trillion years, then we're inherently going to be full of anxiety. Bhayam dvitiya viniveshatasya. The root cause of all anxiety is misidentification of the eternal spirit soul with the temporary body. So, okay. So appreciation for these questions that relate to the highest attainment of life. So in a sense, what we're talking about here is different. Because in a sense, Dhritarashtra, he's asking questions to his brother. I guess technically would be a half-brother, his brother Vidura. So in a sense, these are different sorts of questions. This isn't quite Vinaya sort of Prishram Baba Birabala. They're not, okay? No, this is about Dhritarashtra. He's in a space of like political intrigue, okay? And like, how can I protect my wealth and my kingdom and my status, and how can I destroy my enemies? So in a sense, these are not very glorious questions, just to make that distinction. Now, okay, so you said, well, how come we're hearing about these? And so Vidura, well, that's what Prabhupada says in it's a one-sentence purport. Political suggestions by Vidura are known as expert, just as in modern times, Pandit Chanakya is considered the authority in good counsel in both political and moral instructions. Yeah, like in India, like in Delhi, there's a Chanakya Square, and Chanakya was like a Brahmin political advisor from about 2,000 years ago. What we're reading is from about like 5,000 years ago. So Prabhupada's referring to like modern times is like 2,000 years ago compared to 5,000.
In India, 100 times is 2,000.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's a fact. Yeah, like here we are. So like in Florida, history a long time ago would be like the 1800s. Whoa, that goes far back. Okay. Right, but then even if you go, let's say, a little farther north, okay, New York, Philadelphia, Boston, yeah, then long time ago, like early history, it gets to 1700s. Go to Europe, England, France, Germany. Okay, 1700s, it's pretty modern, but then history goes back to like 1,000 years ago. Like
before Christ.
Yeah, okay, maybe 2,000. Right, then go go to the Middle East, get 3,000 years, and go back to India. That's it. So like the Vedas were never born at a particular place in time, but even historically, it's about 5,000 years ago. With the Vedas describe cycles of creations, and like cycles of creations, like the big cycle, 311 trillion, 40 billion years. And even that is just one exhalation of the Mahavishnu. And within that cycle, there are smaller cycles of just hundreds of billions of years. And within that, there are smaller cycles. And the Kali Yuga is just a teensy 432,000 years. Like that. Okay. But Vidura, he is in that state of consciousness of Munayasa Prishtoham Bhavadvilakam of full transcendence. The questioner, Dhritarashtra, isn't. He's in. Now, I say political mood, but my meaning here is not to degrade politics. Politics can be spiritual and transcendental too. And that's kind of, I think, a theme here of Prabhupada in this part. So Dhritarashtra's mentality, there's a lot of material manipulations going on and like that. Earlier in the Bhagavatam, in the first canto, which is later in the chronology, a little confusing, but in the first canto, so this is what we're reading here is sort of like a prequel, okay? But in the first canto, so Vidura is talking to Dhritarashtra, and after the Battle of Kurukshetra, and he's because Dhritarashtra, he lost all his sons in the battle, and there was just all this devastation, all because of his political intrigue, catalyzed by how they insulted Draupadi and like that. But then he's living in the palace at the expense of the Pandavas, who he spent his whole life trying to kill. So Vidura, his caring half brother, comes and goes like, "You're pathetic." Honest feedback, because like your bodily systems are collapsing, your teeth, your liver, your hearing, your eyesight, and you're living like a dog. Like, come on, give up all of this gross attachment to materialism, and give the last days of your life in this incarnation to liberation. And he does. And Dhritarashtra hears him. Now, this is later in the Bhagavatam, but it's before the Battle of Kurukshetra. So Vidura is similarly, he's going to give some heavy feedback, some heavy advice. And in this case, Dhritarashtra's son, Dhritarashtra doesn't listen this time. And that caused a lot of problems. So Prabhupada makes the point that, well, Vidura is such a saintly person. He's known as Saint Vidura. He's truly a saintly person. Sattva, more than so, he's a pure devotee of Krishna, such a saintly person. So why is he involved in politics, right? And so this part, we talk a lot about how this process of bhakti, it's very world embracing. Srila Prabhupada, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta, Lord Chaitanya, Vidura, they want their sincere followers to be leaders in the world in all areas of human endeavor, or at least some respectable areas, maybe not like butchery or something like that. Okay, but for the most part, we can maybe find a few exceptions. But so the idea, like, this isn't about world rejection. We have our Bhagavad Gita course, and I was sending some responses to one of the members of the course. It was Bhakti Mark from New Zealand. And anyhow, in the response, I quoted a letter from Prabhupada. I copied a letter from Prabhupada. And he's, because Prabhupada, he did emphasize like Krishna conscious, sustainable self-sufficiency communities in rural places. Completely. He wants that. All of our disciplic succession wants that for sure. At the same time, in this particular letter, because apparently Prabhupada heard about, it was in New York, his center in New York, and the brahmacharis, which means like those in the ashram of celibate student, that they were beginning to try to make some plans because they were apparently agitated by the women in the temple and in New York. And some plans like, oh, okay, well, during the chanting time, the women shouldn't be here. And during class time, they were trying to make some arrangements and plans. So Prabhupada wrote, he said, well, if they're agitated by the women, then maybe they should go to the forest, because Prabhupada said, because here's the thing. I mean, he didn't exactly use that term. He said, here's the thing. In New York, there are a lot of women. There are a lot of attractive women. So if you're going to be agitated, go to the forest. But if you go to the forest, who will be in New York to share this transcendental knowledge? Who will be in New York? So Prabhupada, he wants us in the towns and the villages and the cities, and the opportunity. That's why, like, we have this morning program given to us by Srila Prabhupada, japa, kirtan, discussion of sublime philosophical matters. We're meant to be philosophers, so that we're filled up, so that we fill ourselves up each day with transcendental potency, so that wherever we go, maybe our dharma, maybe our job, maybe our service, maybe it's in the field of politics, maybe it's in the field of agriculture, maybe it's in the field of business or real estate, maybe it's in construction or healing, whatever. It's not about rejection. It's about going. It's about going to whatever our dharma, our service is, going there, and let's call it, and causing the osmosis to go towards transcendence, right? Osmosis of consciousness is always happening, okay? So it's a fact. Like, for example, Prabhupada said, the modern universities are slaughterhouses, okay? Right? They're just so destructive for finer spiritual sentiments. I mean, in the field of psychology, there's a saying that first modern psychology lost its soul, then it lost its conscience, and now it's lost its mind altogether. If we look at the progression of the philosophy of psychology, like first taking out the soul, then taking out any morality, and then, with development of certain approaches to behaviorism, there's no such thing as mind, even just like anything remotely subtle or finer. At the same time, Srila Prabhupada and Bhaktivinoda Thakur, they want their followers, for those who it's their psychophysical nature and it's their service, to go to the university. But see, whether we're going to university, whether we're going to political arena, whether we're going to our business, our corporation, whatever, yeah, it's filled with material energy, sometimes heavy rajas and tamas. I mean, that's Kali Yuga, very degraded energy. And so if we're not strong spiritually, we'll go there and we get covered over. And then that's unfortunate. That can be like a tragedy. Then we lose we lose our finer consciousness. We lose our Krishna consciousness. And so that's why. Well, let's say example. Let's say if there's a tender seedling, just whatever, a baby rabbit could just crush it. So the tender seedling needs to be carefully protected, maybe with fencing, or it needs to be carefully protected. Okay. At the same time, so similarly, it's part of like meeting ourselves where I'm at, to arrange our life with sufficient protective structures that I'm constantly growing and deepening in enthusiasm for true spiritual life, for practicing bhakti, for Krishna consciousness. And at the same time, when let's say several years later, a tender seedling, let's say it's like this sturdy redwood, 120 feet high or however high they grow, but higher than that probably. It's this sturdy redwood. Okay, then there could be a hurricane. It won't touch it. Okay, so we need to, So it's not about like withdrawing ourselves in some sort of cloister or something. It is about consciously protecting ourselves with taking shelter in the program given to us by our parampara acharya. That's why Srila Prabhupada is our current link to the disciplic succession, starting with Krishna himself. Current link means like we know how to protect ourselves and cultivate Krishna consciousness. We're given guidelines, and within that context, it remains vitally important that we use our intelligence to understand ourselves, know our psychophysical nature, so that we're protected and we're constantly increasingly strengthened, so we can go into any arena. We go into any arena and we're giving transformational, transcendental knowledge. Okay. And that requires that we're strong, because like if we're going into places and we're not strong enough, we'll get overwhelmed by Maya, the force of illusion. And the nature of Maya often, usually, is we're in illusion and we don't know we're in illusion. We've slid down the slippery slope and we think we're standing on top of the mountain. That's the nature of Maya. Avaranatmika Shakti, the covering potency. And so certainly a powerful way to enhance our inspiration and enthusiasm in spiritual life is to share it. And to share it, it means that we're strong. We're strong in what we're sharing. So like each day we're cultivating this spiritual life. Each day we're called idam hi pumplas tapsasa shutashifa sutashis fictasya chabudi datayo avichutorta kavibir nyupito yarutamashluka gunanu varnanam. It's a verse from the Bhagavatam spoken by Narada Muni. And Narada Muni and Srila Prabhupada, they talk about all these, they talk about politics, economics, physics, sociology, social work, psychology. They go, it's not meant to be rejected. These are all energies of Krishna. And so we're encouraged to cultivate the capacity to go into any field, to be able to make distinctions, to be able to make fine distinctions, to meet ourselves meet others where they're at, and create value. Value that is transcendental, eternal, truly transformational for the heart and soul. So that's that synergistic integration. Cultivate our own Krishna consciousness by following Srila Prabhupada, and following Srila Prabhupada, who, right, he was so fully potent in Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada left Vrindavan in Uttar Pradesh, where the whole consciousness is Jai Radhe, Hare Krishna. He left there and he came to New York. He came to the West, where there's apparently no devotees. But Prabhupada wasn't saying there's no devotees in Pittsburgh, New York, or Florida. He's saying, oh, everyone's a devotee of Krishna. And by his potency, the osmosis, there was nothing in him that was susceptible to be covered by Maya. So we want to follow his example of sharing with joy. We don't want to imitate, because we can see like, well, I am very susceptibly covered over by Maya. So let me understand I'm not that redwood, but let me aspire to grow into a redwood. And so wherever Prabhupada went, so even here in Alachua, Florida, in Haaretz Yisrael, right, we're hearing Bhagavatam because Prabhupada was so potent. An example Prabhupada gives from the Vedas is it's kind of like a negative analogy, just to get the point. The Visha Kanya. Visha Kanya means the poison girl. So the idea in former times, maybe today in some places, I don't know. Yeah, maybe. So the idea is that Kanya is a beautiful young girl. So from a very young age, they would give a girl a little bit of poison. Not enough to make her sick or to kill her, but she would build immunization. They'd gradually give her more and more. Then when she came of age, they would send her to a political enemy, and as soon as he would kiss her, he would die. So it's like a negative analogy. But the positive part of the analogy is the idea is that we fill ourselves up with Krishna consciousness so deeply that whoever, even when we're just in the post office, or wherever we go, whatever we're doing, people's material desires get eliminated. Their material life dies and they awaken to the eternal life of the soul. It's described also in the second canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Dharmasya pavargasya nartotai pakalpate nartasya dharmakantasya kama labaya hi smita. That all occupations, right, they're not meant to be rejected, neither are they meant to be indulged in materially. They're meant engaged 100%, and they're meant ultimately for liberation, for realization, not just cognitively, but realization of who we are, spirit, soul, not matter, and eternal servants of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If in performing our Dharma, if economic prosperity comes, not to reject it, and not to indulge in it, not to use it for just petty sense gratification. And yes, right. If economic development comes, not to use it for self, just like here we are in a house. Well, it's just some house in Alachua, Florida. But no, so because Marie, so she's arranging and paying the electric bill and taking care of the house and like that. And we're using this house to discuss Bhagavatam. Okay, so there's economics involved. Economy, that's Lakshmi. That's Lakshmi. It's the energy of Krishna, just like time's an energy of Krishna. So we use it for self-realization, right? So there's a purport, Prabhupada says, I think it's 6th canto. He says, one who sees everything as Maya, rather than seeing everything as Krishna, is in illusion, is an offender. Because what's that?
It's in Maya.
Yeah, it's in Maya. That's it. Because we say, this computer, this is Maya. Okay. Or that movie's Maya. Well, actually, this computer or that movie, it's all the energy of Krishna. Maya means that which is not. The fact is, everything factually is connected with God. So nothing's Maya. Now, to the extent that I'm not realizing the connection of everything with God and how to use everything in the service of God, then means my consciousness is an illusion. I'm in Maya. Okay. And we want to understand that actually I'm not so expert in dovetailing and using everything in Krishna's service. So let me protect myself, otherwise I can go out there and I'll get covered over. Let me become so strong that wherever I go, I'm naturally, organically inspiring people in their original self-realization, Krishna consciousness. A basic example for this world-embracing principle, the example, Prabhupada uses it a lot, like if I find a wallet on the street, so the material mentality, it's like, wow, there's $800 credit cards. Okay, wow, I can enjoy now with this money. So that represents the material mentality. It's not even an analogy, real thing. And then that, okay, for Panchikatya Buddhya, Hari Bandhuni Vastuna, Mumukshubi Parityago, Palgu Vairagam Kachite. Palgu is like the English word false. Incomplete renunciation, which is above, higher than the material indulgent mentality. But incomplete renunciation would be something like, oh, here's a wallet, and it's got money and credit cards. This is not my wallet. This is not my money to enjoy. And I walk away. So there's something more noble about that than the material mentality. But it's not complete. Complete is anasaktasya vishayanyataham upayunjata nibandha Krishna samade yuktam vairagam uchite. Yukta vairagam, just like the root of yoga comes from yukta, the English word to yoke, to connect. Yuktam vairagam uchite. So complete renunciation is realizing, okay, this is not my wallet, these are not my credit cards, it's not my money to enjoy. But it is someone's. It is someone's. Like the highest integrity is, okay, so let me return the wallet, the cards, the driver's license, the money. Let me return it to the owner because it's his to enjoy. then we feel, then we feel really that was the highest integrity. So similarly, again, all of the energies, this is, so we can renounce it. But real renunciation means to renounce the enjoying spirit, to renounce the enjoying spirit. An example I often use, stolen by Srila Prabhupada, stolen by Srila Prabhupada, comes from Prabhupada. Just like I could go into Capital City Bank here in Alachua, and I walk out of the bank and I declare to the whole town, I renounce the millions of dollars in this bank. I renounce it. So someone might come to me and say, David, you don't own the millions of dollars. It's not yours to renounce. I mean, you have some like delusions of grandeur or something. It's not yours to renounce. I could be like, you're spoiling my party here. So everything belongs to Krishna. Okay. So real renunciation isn't mean like, I won't use a computer. I mean, of course, we do want to regulate our computer time, otherwise it spoils our life. We're making a philosophical point here. Like, doesn't mean like, I won't have a bank account in my name, but it's realizing that, yeah, this bank account in my name, it's not mine. Yeah, okay, it's in my name. But it's like, it's here. This is to be used in Krishna's service. This relationship, this mind, this body, that's let's return it and let's use it, return it, let's use it for the pleasure of the owner, the actual source, the actual owner. So Vidura is doing that in the field of politics, right? He's a pure devotee, and he's getting involved in politics, but he's doing it for Krishna. So we get to do that in every field. I know some of you, like in the book Relationships That Work, when I first set about with intention to I'm going to write a book, and I didn't have that title in mind, not at all. In a million years, I would not think of that title. Anyway. But when I first set about to write the book, the first thing I did to prepare, I'm glad to say, is I carefully read Bhagavad Gita as it is again, cover to cover. This was probably around 2004, 2005. And maybe already read it 4 or 5 times. But I said, because I know that, and I read so many personal growth books and this and that. But I read Bhagavad Gita cover to cover. Because I went like, whatever I give, I want it to be founded in these eternal universal principles of true self-realization and spiritual life. And yes. Okay. Amasya Nandriya Pritya Labo Jiveta Yavata Jivasya Tattva Jigyasa Natayascha Kamabi. So Sutta Goswami says life's desires, for those interested in the higher values, the art of the higher values of life, life's desires should never be directed towards sense gratification, because human life is meant for inquiry into the absolute truth. Nothing else should be the goal of one's works. So here, Vidura, he's involved in politics, and he's giving Krishna consciousness in that arena. And he's qualified to do so, just as Prabhupada was and is completely qualified to bring Krishna consciousness in a transformational, powerful way all over the world in the midst of the darkness. Kalar doshe nideva astir kumankuda kirtanadeva Krishna mukta sangha samachara. And in this age of Kali, which is described as an ocean of faults, like the redeeming auspicious virtue is that transformation of heart and soul towards self-realization of God is fully available through the process of kirtan, through the process of chanting the names of God. And it's described, Idisho dashakam namnam kalikam nashanam, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. That in this age, there's many powerful mantras, And this Hare Krishna Maha Mantra is especially recommended for various reasons that are described in the Vedas, for self-realization, for reawakening the original joyful consciousness of the soul and devotional connection with the Supreme. Before I close, I just thought, okay, this about Vidura, relating it to our transformative communication. That, yeah, so I said, like, he speaks very heavy. He speaks very heavy. He's truly caring and capable to care about his brother Dhritarashtra's highest good. And that's, we talk a lot about communication. That's sattvic communication. Sattvic communication, and this is, again, like reading Bhagavad Gita. It describes all aspects of life, including speech, communication, in the different modes. There's communication in tamas, in rajas, in sattva, in transcendence. So sattva communication means communicating the truth in a way that's truly intended to create benefit, intended to be win-win for everyone. Okay, communicating the truth, and it's described as an austerity, because it can be easy to withhold the truth because I just don't want to deal with it. Or it could be to rajasic, like, here's the truth in your face, but I'm coming from a harsh place, not from a caring heart. But to actually, like, okay, I'm going to communicate the truth, and this is, and it's risky because as we read, we'll find that Vidura spoke the truth. And he got unceremoniously kicked out of the palace. Right? So just like someone like Jesus speaks the truth. It's not like, even if we speak the truth with a fully loving heart, like Jesus or Srila Prabhupada, doesn't mean the whole world will apply. Right? There are risks to take that stand. And so our opportunity and responsibility, speak the truth, not withhold out of fearful ignorance. Of course, there's a distinction between like choosing silence based on intelligent discretion and like, I want to say something, but I'm too scared to speak. And that comes from tamas. So sattva communication, truth, truly in a caring way. And that's where Vidura is coming from. He's caring enough about his brother, in a sense, to not care whether anyone in the palace likes him. And many didn't like him and they kicked him out violently. And also speaking truth, but not just relative truth, but speaking truth that's based on the Vedas. So that means that it's vital that we know the Vedas. Because, I'm going to go to the internet. I'm going to go to the internet and start studying the Vedas. Caution. So that's why this, I'm going to.
It was so much better when it was more German.
Easy. It's true. In many ways, we see that in our service. In many ways, even like, I want to find out about Shiva. I'm going to go to the internet. Be careful. But like Shiva, such a glorious personality. There's just like so much about Shiva in Srimad Bhagavatam. So much about Shiva. In Brahma Samhita, Kshiram Dakti Yatavika Rapishesha Yoga Sanjayate Nai Tata Pritagasti Hutu Yasambutam Apitata Samupayitikar Yat Govinda Mari Pusham Tamaham Bhajami. Shiva's like yogurt. Just like yogurt's not different from milk. Shiva's not different from Krishna. But there is a difference between yogurt and milk. Yogurt is nothing but milk, but there is a difference. So that science is described. So that's why we hear the Vedas through a bona fide sampradaya. Otherwise, what's the authority? Otherwise, I heard that someone said this about that, but no, but I read this here and there. So it's, what's that?
Yes, I didn't use that.
Yes, you knew that, yeah. So Srila Prabhupada is our current link. So we know Vyasadeva, we know Vidura, we get the Vedas through Srila Prabhupada. And then we fill ourselves up with that more and more each day. And whenever we speak, it's true, it's in our integrity, and honest truth, and from a truly caring place, not trying to feel superior, put others down so I can try to feel good about myself in some shadow way. And it's based on absolute vibration. We said like every mantra in this Bhagavatam, every mantra reveals truth, and it's non-different from the truth it reveals. So we want to aspire to become that, where every vibration we make, every movement, it reveals absolute truth, and it's non-different from the truth it reveals, meaning whoever contacts us, they get transformed in the most auspicious way. So this text, I'll read it again. Yado pahuto bhavanam pravishto mantraya prishta kila purvajena atahatan mantra drisham variyan yan mantrino vaidurikam vadanti. When Vidura was invited by his elder brother Dhritarashtra for consultation, he entered the house and gave instructions which were exactly to the point. His advice is well known, and instructions by Vidura are approved by expert ministers of state. Thank you for listening. I welcome at this time any comments or questions. Malin.
I have a comment. It's just an expansion of the analogy
Yeah.
with the wallet,
Okay.
because there's another part to it, is that when I return the wallet to its owner, I have a new friend.
Okay. And I like that. Thanks for that.
That's all.
Right. Thanks for that. And then we become dear to Krishna. Oh, thanks for that. Yeah. Thanks for that. So we use Krishna's wallet in Krishna's service, and we become dear to Krishna. Thanks for that. Beautiful. Bhakti Nico.
Yeah, thank you for a wonderful class. I really like sitting in discussion with everyone these mornings. I'm really resonating with the seedling like metaphor,
Sure.
where it's like if you're a small seed, anything can crush you over.
Yeah.
And it's really important to have the fence, and the fence is the sadhu sangha and Srila Prabhupada
Yes.
and following like his instructions. And yeah, this beautiful idea of like being the change, like really like developing it in ourselves, and then everything that we do, like from this center point. Like my experience is and my understanding is, if I place this at the center of my life, like this sadhana, this path, then everything else becomes helpful, like for everyone else, because it helps them in the highest and deepest way of transformation on the path of self-realization. And and this idea of like, there's a lot of like rajas and tamas in Kali Yuga. Yeah. And like a little personal antidote, like during Christmas, I like went and stayed at a family friend's house, like from childhood. And and I just felt like I only spent one day with them, but I definitely felt it, like they're eating meat, they're completely distracted, disoriented, running, and like the way they're talking to each other, everyone's yelling and road blocking, and it was really heavy. And then but I have uncovered a way to kind of use it for inspiration. And this is more from my, previously a few years ago, I studied a little bit of the Yoga Sutras by Patanjali. And there, it's very much like the importance of any yogic practice is steadiness and consistency. Yeah. And then someone's like, okay, how do you stay steady? How do you stay consistent? He said, you must use compassion. And really, like what I took from that is like, I'm not practicing just for myself. Like I'm practicing for everyone. Yeah. And like the only and the best thing I can do for others is to practice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for that. Thanks for sharing your experience and realizations, Bhakti Nico. I appreciate it. Yeah. That's there's a saying in Shaytan Consciousness, Manusha Jana Sarta Karikara Parupakara. Parupakara means that the highest welfare work. And that's Lord Chaitanya, that's giving Krishna consciousness. And that's the analogy Prabhupada often uses. Like we can have a string of zeros, 10 zeros, 20 zeros, 50 zeros. What's it worth? 0. No, but if we put the 1 in front, then the 1 gives value, then it becomes trillion, quadrillion, big number. Very valuable. So the 1, that's that self-realization, Krishna consciousness. Then everything becomes auspicious and vibrant. And without the 1, we're trying to help people, so-called, but it's it's empty. It's lacking substance. It's lacking substance. Yeah. So I appreciate your realizations. Hare Krishna. Any other comments, questions at this time?
I mean, I'm thinking of one more thing.
Yeah.
Like the life embracing, like really like life embrace. Like I see it in myself so much. Like it's so easy to say like I'm not ready. You know, like oh I need to study more, practice more. Like I'm not ready to like share or to go out and present myself. And yeah, this idea that like by sharing, like we get more inspired, and by interacting with people, we see how much they're suffering and how important it is for us to deepen our own practice and for us to share.
Yeah. Thanks for that. Thanks for that. Yeah. I mean, I felt inspired this morning, and I'm more inspired now than I was an hour ago, because I accepted the service to lead the class. All right. So now, okay. All right. And so now I'm deep in my basic comment saying about love. You know, the more you give away, the more you have. Because if it's material love, that's not true. But if it's truly spiritual love, spiritual knowledge, spiritual wisdom, Bhagavatam, then it's true that the more we share, the more we have, right? And so then that's balanced with like, at the same time, that we don't want to neglect our personal sadhana in the name of sharing. There was once I heard from, this was an early mentor of mine in Krishna Consciousness, and he was describing someone who was an early mentor of his. He talked to me in the 80s, but he was talking about in the 70s. And there was someone who was actually had quite some influential leadership position in Prabhupada's movement. And he was like a charismatic, potent preacher, that sort of thing. But others could see, like he stopped chanting his rounds, stopped reading the books. And he at one point, he made a statement like, Arjuna didn't chant rounds. Arjuna was on the battlefield. Okay, so that was the beginning of the end for him, right? So that our sharing is potent to the extent that we're cultivating. So Prabhupada gave us both. He gave morning program, also evening program, so a personal reading. Then let's be inspired to share. And in sharing, then we get inspired. And sometimes in sharing, like maybe someone asks a question, and it's nice because then we get to sharpen our philosophical intelligence. But sometimes we go like, oh, I wasn't so satisfied with how I answered. Let me study more. Let me ask more questions. So it's such a win-win process. Thank you.
I just will do a marketing speech. Tomorrow evening, Bhakti Nico is going to give a Bhagavad Gita class. Like marketing Srila Prabhupada's
more important
program.
Thursday. Thursday marketing. Thursday.
He wants you to announce the Thursday Harinam too.
Oh, and Thursday Harinam. Thursday Harinam. We are doing Harinam at Depot Park at 3 p.m.
Oh, okay. Right. So there's basically three ways to share and market. So one is philosophy. So that's tomorrow night for you. And the other is the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, or sing Jai Radha Madhava, the song, Kirtan. And the third is Prasadam.
We do distribute Prasadam at Depot Park.
Yeah.
Cookies and oranges.
On a Friday morning, Nico and I will host. Nico's going to prepare prasad.
Right.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Jai Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.
Jai.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Hare Krishna.